Welcome. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we are delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. We certainly would love to hear from you. So send us an email with a question or a comment to jimandjoy@EWTN.com. And today our guest is Tyler Rowley. He is a husband, a father, an entrepreneur. He is the author of a great book that we highly recommend to you. He's the author of a book called Because of Our Fathers. And this great book is available at EWTNRC.com. And we certainly enjoyed reading the stories one to another. It was really enriching. It was really faith-building, and really saw the courage and the love and respect that sons and daughters had about their fathers and how their fathers passed on their faith to their children. So you want to get this book. It's a great read. It's all these little vignettes of encounters of 23 Catholic faith-filled fathers.
Right. So we're coming up on Father's Day, and the book is, again, Because of Our Fathers. Because of our fathers what? Because of our fathers, we came to know Christ, and we came to love the church. And that's of the essence regarding what fatherhood is about. To be a living manifestation, that's a pretty heavy deal, of the Lord. And so we succeed and we fail at all that. But nonetheless, the call's there to manifest, in some sense, incarnationally, the face of the Father. As Jesus saw the face of the Father and incarnated that to us. And so we're called to do that. His introduction to the book is absolutely fantastic, Tyler's introduction. I mean, his passion, his teaching on fatherhood, the importance of it, based on Holy Scripture, based on the teaching of the church, based on psychology, based on sociology, and on and on and on. The case that he builds, and really calling out fathers and calling out the church to be the church. And if the church is really going to be the church, there's those sayings, society goes by the way of the family. And the church, in big part, goes by the way of the family. It's the building block of society, of the culture, and of the church. And so much of the family goes by way of the father. And I think there is a renaissance, a renewal going on regarding fatherhood within the Catholic Church and maybe among other religious groups. But there's a lot of failure, a lot of confusion, we don't even want to say the name of father, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. But Tyler's, the testimonies that he has, some from Bishop Strickland, Patrick Madrid, Father Paul Scalia, Jesse Romero, and so on, really profound, like you just said, a delight to read, maybe before you go to bed or whenever you would do your reading. But great stories, perfect for Father's Day. So get the book today, EWTNRC.com, Because of Our Fathers, Tyler Rowley. And it's a must-read. Love the book, really learning from it. It'll be a great inspiration to you. We're building a new culture of life and marriage and the family, and life, marriage, and the family, and true masculinity and fatherhood will prevail. We'll be right back. Plenty more to come. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and today our guest is Tyler Rowley. He is a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, an author of a great book that we highly recommend to you, Because of Our Fathers. And this great book is available at EWTNRC.com. Well, Tyler, we're so glad to have you. We also know that you are the president of the Servants of Christ for Life. So we want you to tell our family, because I'm sure they've never seen you before, we want you to tell our family a little bit about yourself and what gave you this great idea for this book.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Thank you, Jim and Joy. About myself, I'm just a father and a husband from Rhode Island who was listening to Catholic radio one day and had an idea for a book, and then spent probably the better part of close to 2 years putting it together. So So because of our fathers is basically came about because I heard Father Gerald Murray telling the story of his father. So obviously you know who Father Gerald Murray is. But that was the genesis of this book. So I heard him telling the story of his father, who had just recently passed away. And he told a story when he was 7 years old. He suddenly realized that his dad was going to mass every single day before he was going to work. It was just something he didn't know. He didn't realize that. And he said, "Dad, why are you going to church? We only go to church on Sundays." And he said, "Well, I love to be with Christ every day." And specifically referencing the Eucharist, of what he loves to be with Christ in the Eucharist every day. And this is a story, 50 years later, Father Murray is remembering as sort of a spark where he realizes that, the biggest and the best and the strongest and, the guy that he looks up to the most in life is doing something very different than what he thought. Like, church isn't sort of a family event. It's the biggest guy in his life, the best guy in his life, lives in sort of a humble servitude to God, gets down on his knees every day, wakes up early, sacrifices his family time to be with the Lord. And this is just sort of a bombshell for, 7, 8 years old. You're starting to be able to understand those things. And so I heard that story, and I said, the first thing that I thought of when I heard that story was a study that my priest had sent me years before that I always found fascinating. But it was basically a study about the generational transmission of faith. So how the faith is passed on to sons and daughters through mom and dad. Yes. And it was a Swiss study done in 2000. And there's been other studies like this, but this particular one was a Switzerland study. And they have good data on this because they asked these questions during their census. But the long and short of it is that the numbers were astronomical, and how the correlation, the much stronger correlation between the father's practice of the faith and the mother's practice of the faith. So basically the children have a 2 to 3% chance of ever becoming a regular churchgoer if the dad isn't a regular churchgoer. Yeah. And then that goes up to 50, 60% if the dad is a regular churchgoer, and even if the mom isn't. And there's been many other secular religious studies like that correlate that. So I heard that, and then that made me think of all the people in my life. So I'm thinking now, I'm driving and I'm thinking of this. Well, what about my family and my friends? And it was just one after the other. Everyone I know, everyone was a spiritual mirror almost of their father. Mm-hmm. And so I started to think, okay, well, let me see if this is outside of the people I know. And I started to call people like, Patrick Madrid, or, got email addresses for people like Bishop Strickland. And I asked them, what's kind of funny about that is that I don't know anything about their dads before I approach them, right? I only know about them as being serious and committed Catholics. But if this has any legs, I know what response I should get. And I did get that response almost 90% of the time. For the people that I thought to reach out to, it was the same thing, that my dad was, very serious, very committed, greatest dad in the world. He's the reason I'm Catholic. He led the family in prayer, and he made sure we were at mass every week, and, just a very faithful guy. So I said, well, this is what the church has been trying to teach us for 2,000 years. It's not like I'm coming up with some sort of new theory, but the teaching has all this personal examples of my own life and all these people that I'm reaching out to. So I said, well, let me see if I can compile these. Yeah. And first of all, show people the truth of the teaching, that the father is the head of the household, the father is the leader, the spiritual leader of a family, and then then through the stories, you get sort of practical advice. Like that's what people want to know. Like, what specifically did you do? How was it done? And I think that's the stories sort of give it the flesh on the bone, if you will.
Well, like you were sharing, why don't you tell our family some of the themes that are operative as these children tell their stories about their fathers, that almost could be a great guarantee that you would raise the children up in the Catholic faith.
Right. So from taking that question in a very sort of general sense first, all 23 of these sons and daughters, they want to be like their fathers. Mm-hmm. There's a goodness about their dads, and there's a strength, a very authentic masculinity in their fathers. That's the most common denominator. That these are men that the sons and daughters emulate and want to be like, and then they see that his Catholic faith is central to what makes him that type of person, and that's what makes them Catholic. Now, drilling down on that more of the sort of practical specifics. These are men that go to work every day. These are men that love their wives in a very obvious way to their children. I think all 23 of these contributors talked about how good their father treated their mother. These men are sacrificial. They'll take on second jobs. They'll sacrifice pay to be with the family more when it's necessary. So they're very sacrificial in their nature. They'll wake up early to go to mass. They'll sacrifice their time. They'll sacrifice their money for the betterment of the children, for the betterment of the family. So it just in their nature, they all have this sort of sacrificial character to them. Prayer is central in the household, whether it's and the rosary seems to be the most central prayer. I think 22 out of the 23 of these people actually mentioned a family rosary that was, a daily family rosary that they prayed. I don't think that was coincidental. But just a commitment to prayer, a commitment to the church, an intentionality about the faith. They weren't afraid to teach them specific things about the faith. Some of these parents would drill them on, well, what did the priest say today on the way home from church? And what does that mean? How do we understand that in the context of our culture? And honestly, these families are different. A lot of these children are reflecting on, we knew we were different than other people, but the difference wasn't bad. The difference was to be celebrated. So Father Scalia talks about, he knew that their family was different simply because there was 9 of them. No one else had 9 kids, So, but that difference, again, it's a good difference.
Yeah.
We didn't go to school on holy days of obligation. All the other kids did. My dad took us to see John Paul II when he came to Chicago. He hoisted me up on his shoulders so that I could see him. So there's a difference, and they treat Sundays different. They treat like I said, holy days different, and it always has to do with being attracted to this difference. Like Sundays are fun. It's not. There's a connection between the joy of the faith and the sacrifice of the faith. So that these children are growing up with a connection that Catholicism is not just rules. It's how you live a fully integrated, complete, joyful life. And why would you want to give that up when the guy who's leading you in those joy-filled things is the best guy that you know, and he has a goodness to him, and he protects you, and he sacrifices for you, and he gives you the example that carries on to what you want to give to your family. So hopefully that's like a general sketch, and then some specific things. But I really think the meat of it is when you read the specifics within the specifics, like the distinctions within the distinctions of like, how did they do it, and what exactly did that look like, and how is the child telling that story, and what is he reflecting on? And there's a lot of that in there. There's a lot of practical, good stories.
Really powerful. And yeah, I'm into those stories, but also those themes, those principles that come out as a dad, as a grandfather, and saying, okay, am I doing that sort of thing? Or what will my children remember about me? What am I hitting on? And maybe I could do one better than the other, but I need to think now. What am I doing? What am I giving? What am I showing? And you are saying in these themes that the faith is really committed to, it's incarnational. People are living their lives in an integrated way because of the Catholic faith. It seems to touch every aspect of their being, from play, recreation, Sundays. You mentioned life, that one of the things was we recognized we'd be the only ones with 9 children or something. But it does seem to be a theme running throughout a number of these reflections, especially those that go back to Roe v. Wade, and that some of them recollect when Roe v. Wade took place. And there was lots of people didn't get what was going on in the magnitude. Some of these dads did. And they began to instruct their children right at this time how evil this is, how this is not true, that you can abort a child, no matter what the world is telling us. I think it's Father Murray's dad in particular, and really laying out theologically and philosophically and the natural law why this cannot be. And it's not only true about about life, but it could be about marriage, or it could be about other areas of the natural law and truth for the sake of truth. This is the way it's been from the beginning. Some of it's theological, some of it's just the natural law. And to somehow, I guess fathers do this in a variety of ways. Some of them are professors and attorneys, they do it that way. Some of them are farmers or whatever they are. But they're all saying there's some things that are unchangeable here, and we must never waver from this. And it's very gallant, it's very big as they're sharing this, and these kids are kind of listening to them. And as you see, as they go in their lives, they get this love for life, they get this love for marriage, they get this love for truth, and they get grit. That you must be willing to fight and even die for this. And that seems to be a theme that runs throughout. Yeah.
So just to play right off that, one of the contributors in the book is actually a woman who moved into basically my hometown in Rhode Island, and she married someone who my family was family friends with for years. And there was something different about this woman. She was really committed to her Catholic faith, not falling away like most of the families around this area. And so that sort of created, a friendship between us. And then one day she's talking, I noticed she mentioned her dad all the time. And I said, okay, well, I'm putting this book together, and this makes sense because you're the most committed Catholic that I know of, within this circle of friends that my family has. So tell me about your dad. And she says, well, my dad did pro bono, pro-life legal work in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, she said, look, I'll tell you a story. One time a woman was in jail, and she was in New Jersey, and she was trying to get an abortion. So a legal case proceeded. They were trying to stop there was pro-lifers who were trying to stop the abortion. And of course, Planned Parenthood and NARAL were trying to, release the woman from jail so she could have an abortion. I think it was the first time a judge had assigned a lawyer to fight for an unborn child. Mm. This is New Jersey going back to the early 70s. And her father made a case in her court proceeding of why she should not be allowed to have this abortion. And tactically, he knew he was going to lose. But what he was trying to do was speak to the mother at that moment. He lost, and the mother got out, and she didn't have the abortion because of his arguments. Mm. So 16 years later, Megan, who's the woman I'm talking about, Megan Riley in the book, her father died. And at the wake in comes a woman and her 16-year-old child, and they met the family for the first time. This was the child that her dad helped save through his legal arguments, and it's that woman who has such grit and such faith, and she's so committed to the faith, and that's not a coincidence. That's because of her dad, right? And she had a heroic, committed, serious Catholic father who won this guy won all sorts of awards from pro-life agencies and churches because he was so committed to the cause of life in the context of his Catholic faith. And then she's a rock star herself, and she's a spiritual mirror of her father. She gets that from her dad, and if her dad was not like that, she would not be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're touching on some of the witnesses here that you have of the 23, and I wanted to just mention a word, and you can elaborate a little bit about Father John Riccardo. And his story starts off with a quote, and it says, "Because of you, honey, I know who God is. I'll never forget hearing my mother say these words. She said them to my father as he lay in his casket, just before my family walked down the main aisle of our parish church to begin his funeral." Wow, I mean, how powerful is that? Is that what our wives are going to be able to say about us to some degree, or our children going to be able to say about us as they look at the casket? What an impact upon a son who would become a priest. Yeah. Because of you, honey, I know who God is. We share about the aspect of marriage is to get the other one to heaven, and here it's being said, the impact on John Riccardo. The mother, her reflection upon the father, and then later on in that story, evidently Father Riccardo received much of his spiritual education there in Rome, and he says in another section of the book, my father was the most significant and powerful man in my life, and I say that having met numerous times with Saint John Paul II. My father was the biggest impact on my life. Elaborate a little bit more on Father John Riccardo and what you got from his story.
Yeah, he believes a quiet saint, as we like to say sometimes, that his father is in heaven because he just had he emanated holiness throughout the family. He was and sacrifice, that sacrificial nature was especially evident in John Ricardo's story of his father. His father, by the way, was the president and the chairman of the board of Chrysler. I mean, a very wealthy, successful man, and never for 1 second let it go to his head. He tells a funny story about he ran into a guy one day in Mexico when they were on vacation, and the guy was also in the car business, and they got to talking, and he said, "Oh, you're in the car business too? What do you do?" And he didn't want to tell him, but he ends up saying, "Well, I'm the president, the chairman of the board of Chrysler." And the guy starts laughing because John Ricardo's dressed like, the most common person in the world, and he never would have assumed it. But yeah, that a lot of people say that was their favorite story. And a lot of that comes right from the homily that Father Ricardo is giving at the funeral mass for his father. And his father actually sacrificed himself, basically resigned from the board because he knew that he was standing in the way of his company becoming more successful. He sacrificed a lot of money and a lot of honor in doing that because he cared about the people that he worked with. So that's another specific story within that's really interesting.
Well, Tyler, we're kind of running out of time. Got about a minute or so, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow. But I want you to close just with your hope for this book. What do you hope it does, who it gets to, the impact it has, or what are your hopes for it?
Right. My hopes is that, I talk about a Pew study in there, 2015 Pew study. 27% of Catholics have fallen away from the faith in this country. And another 13% identify as Catholic but largely don't practice. Okay, so that brings us to 40% who are basically out of the faith. But 13% still have a foot in the door, right? So cut that 13% in half. You're talking about 6.5% of those people are men who have a foot in the door. They want to call themselves Catholic. There's something stirring. There's a grace stirring in there. And I want to talk to them. And I say that in the book. This book is specifically to reach you. Now, those guys aren't going to be the ones who pick it up. Someone's got to pick it up and give it to them and tell them that it's their responsibility, that if they don't change their life, their kids will not be baptized. Their kids will lose the faith. Their grandchildren will likely not be baptized. And that's on your shoulders. You are the man. You are the leader. This is proven out in studies. This is church teaching. And I want you to talk to your ancestors. Have a spiritual conversation with your great-great-grandfather, and answer the questions why you let the faith fade from your family. Why did you let it go after so many faithful men passed it on to you? And then you squandered your inheritance of your Catholic faith, and you have to answer to those men. And that's what I want them to do. And I want them to hold on to it, not just because, for traditional reasons. I want them to hold on to it because it's true, and it's good, and it's beautiful, and it's what has made their family, what it is. And don't be the one to break that break that honor.
Tyler, thank you for those closing words, that exhortation. The name of the book, Because of Our Fathers. 23 Catholics tell how their father helped lead them to Jesus Christ at EWTNRC.com. We'll pick this up again tomorrow. Plenty more to come. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, we had a wonderful conversation with Tyler, and we want you all to know about Catholic Father's Day. So go to the website, CatholicFathersDay.com. Father's Day is June 20th. We want you out there to be ready, that you're hearing this, you're learning about this great book. It might be a purchase you want to give to your fathers, give to your brothers, give to your brother-in-laws. Because it's really hopeful. And I loved what Tyler shared. He wants to reach those guys who got their foot in the door, but maybe they're not hitting on all cylinders of their Catholic faith, and they're like squandering their inheritance to say, no, You have an obligation. You have to pass on this heritage, this rich, beautiful faith, that you would know everything that is good and true and beautiful, and that you would become the man that God has called you to be, and you would raise your children for the purpose to which they were born. And this is good news. And we're praying for revival. We're praying for a renewal in the hearts of every man, for sons, especially in this year of St. Joseph.
And this book, Because of Our Fathers, be a great resource to help bring that renewal to pass. Great assessment about fathers in the introduction, wonderful stories, and a great exhortation at the conclusion. Isn't it great that we get to call God our Father, Abba, Father, Daddy? What a great faith. Isn't it wonderful to be Catholic? You're an important part of this EWTN family, a family where God is our Abba, God is our Father. May you hear from him, you're my beloved daughter, you're my beloved son. I'm pleased with you. Knowing everything about you, I love you, and I'm pleased with you. Keep it on EWTN. God bless you and all of your loved ones. Bye now.